My name is Donna Reeve. I am 38 years old, and on a Saturday morning in March, I woke up in a hospital bed, and the doctor showed me the admission form. Someone had brought me in the previous evening. I had collapsed on Marchmont Street, a Friday evening on my way home from a colleague's leaving dinner. I had no memory of the collapse itself. I had no memory of the ambulance. I had woken up to the particular white ceiling of a hospital room and Will sitting beside me with his coat still on, as if he had come very quickly and had not yet had the occasion to take it off. The doctor turned the admission form toward me so I could read it. The name on the form was Sophie Henley. The number on the form was Sophie's number. I knew Sophie's number because I had called it every week for 11 years and had not deleted it from my phone even after she died. Sophie had been dead for 6 months.
Let me tell you about Sophie. Sophie Henley had been my closest friend since we were 27 years old. We had met at a work training course, 2 days in a conference center in Birmingham. Both of us equally bored, both of us ending up at the same table in the lunch break, making the same quiet observation about the same speaker. We had exchanged numbers. We had been friends from that Thursday forward. 11 years. She had been 38 years old when she died, the same age I am now, a car accident on the M4 in September. She had been driving back from a family visit. Another vehicle had crossed into her lane. She had died at the scene. I had been at her funeral. I had been one of the people who spoke. I had not deleted her number from my phone. I had not been able to. And now, her name and her number were on a hospital admission form, written by a hand that was not hers. I looked at the form for a long time. Then I looked at Will. I said, "Someone used Sophie's name." He said, "I know." He said it in the way of someone who had been sitting with that knowledge since he arrived and had not known how to begin with it.
The object at the center of everything was the admission form. 1 page, standard NHS formatting, name, contact number, relationship to patient. The person who had filled in this field had written friend. Sophie's name, Sophie's number, friend. Someone who knew Sophie's name and Sophie's number and had used them without hesitation on a Friday evening on Marchmont Street. Someone who knew Sophie. And someone who knew me, or at least knew me well enough to have been present when I collapsed and to have known to stay. I asked Dr. Simon Park whether there was anything else, a description, CCTV, anything that would tell me what the woman had looked like. He said the ambulance crew had described her as a woman in her mid-40s, dark hair. She had been calm and clear when they arrived, had given them the relevant medical information, and had stayed back when they took over. She had gone before anyone had thought to take more details. Mid-40s, dark hair, calm. I did not know who that was, but I knew who might. Sophie's memorial page. Sophie's family had set up a memorial page on her social media profile in the weeks after she died. I had visited it many times in 6 months. Photographs, messages from friends, updates from her parents marking significant dates. I sent a message to the page on Saturday afternoon. I said, "I am Donna Reeve. Sophie was my closest friend. Last night, someone saved my life and gave Sophie's name and number at the hospital. I am trying to find out who that person was. If anyone who manages this page has any idea, I would be very grateful." I sent it. I did not expect a quick reply. At 11:47 that evening, my phone showed a message from the page. It said, "I know who brought you in. I need to think about whether I can explain. I'm sorry for the confusion last night. I'm sorry for a lot of things." It was not signed. I wrote back, "Please."
I want to pause here, because lying in a hospital bed on a Saturday night reading a message from Sophie's memorial page that said, "I'm sorry for a lot of things," 6 months after Sophie died, is the moment this story became something I had not prepared for when I woke up that morning. Someone had saved my life. They had used Sophie's name. They were sorry for a lot of things. And whatever those things were, they connected to Sophie in a way I did not yet understand. If you have ever received a message that you knew was going to change something, drop a comment below and subscribe right now, because who had been on Marchmont Street on Friday evening and why she had used Sophie's name is the part that took everything I thought I knew about the last 6 months and turned it around.
Gail Moss. She replied on Sunday morning with her name and a request to meet. She was Sophie's sister. I had not known Sophie had a sister. Or rather, I had known, distantly, the way you know the shape of a friend's family without knowing every person in it. Sophie had mentioned a sister once or twice over 11 years. She had mentioned that they did not speak. She had not elaborated, and I had not pushed because Sophie had indicated without saying so that this was territory she did not want to enter. I had not known the sister's name. I had not known she had been in the car with Sophie on the M4 in September, that she had been sitting in the passenger seat, that she had walked away from the same crash that killed her sister. I had not known she had survived. Gail Moss was 44 years old. She had been estranged from Sophie for 2 years before the accident. They had fallen out over a family matter, the details of which were Gail's to tell, not mine to report here. The estrangement had not been resolved. Sophie had died and Gail had survived, and the 2 years of silence had become permanent in the worst possible way. She had been managing Sophie's memorial page because Sophie's parents were in their 70s and had found it too difficult. She had been doing it quietly. She had not announced herself to Sophie's friends. She had simply been there, in the background of the page, reading the messages and posting the updates, and carrying the particular grief of someone who had lost a person while there was still unfinished business between them.
On Friday evening, she had been walking on Marchmont Street. She worked 2 streets away, at a publishing company on Bernard Street, and Marchmont Street was her regular route home. She had seen me collapse. She had known who I was because Sophie had kept a photograph on her phone. The 2 of us at a birthday dinner 2 years ago. Gail had seen it when she was going through Sophie's things after the accident. She had known my face. She had stayed until I was stable, and when the ambulance crew had asked for a name and number, she had given the only name that had been in her mind. She said, "I gave Sophie's name because I couldn't think of my own. I know that sounds impossible, but it's true. I had been thinking about her all evening, and Sophie's name was just there. And then I panicked and left before anyone could ask me anything else."
The meeting. We met on Tuesday in a coffee shop in Clerkenwell. My suggestion, neutral ground, no history. She was dark-haired and careful, and she looked like someone who had been carrying something very heavy for a very long time, and was not sure whether putting it down was allowed. We talked for 3 hours, not about the accident, not about the estrangement, not about the Friday evening on Marchmont Street. We talked about Sophie. What Gail knew of her that I had not known, what I knew of her that Gail had missed in the 2 years they had not spoken, the particular texture of a person as seen from 2 different angles, a sister and a best friend, neither of whom had the complete picture, both of whom were filling in parts of it for the other. She had not known that Sophie had taken up running in the last year of her life. I had not known that Sophie had learned to cook properly, had been teaching herself from a book she had bought on a whim. Gail had given her the book, before the estrangement. She had not known Sophie had kept it and used it. She cried when I told her that. I let her. It was the right thing to let happen.
What followed? We did not become close immediately. That would not be honest to say. What we became was something more careful and more real than closeness. 2 people who had both lost Sophie and who had found each other through the strangest possible chain of events, and who were trying to work out what, if anything, that meant. We met again 3 weeks later, and once more after that. She was still managing the memorial page. I started contributing to it more regularly. The 2 of us posting about Sophie on the same page, filling in different parts of the picture. Sophie's parents noticed. Her mother sent me a message saying it was good to see the two of us together on the page. She did not know the story of how we had come to be there. She did not need to. Here is what an admission form and a name taught me. The people who save us are not always the people we expect. Sometimes they are strangers, sometimes they are people we did not know existed, sometimes they are people carrying their own grief and their own weight and their own unfinished business who happen to be on the right street at the right moment and who do the thing that needs doing without stopping to explain who they are. Gail Moss had been walking on Marchmont Street on a Friday evening carrying 2 years of estrangement and 6 months of survival and an enormous amount of unresolved love for a sister she had not spoken to before she died. And she had stopped, and she had stayed, and she had given the only name she had. I think about that sometimes. The name she gave was the right name, not literally, but in every way that mattered. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. Someone stayed until she was stable. She found out who. That was the beginning of something neither of them had planned.